Hello and welcome back to another CM Travels video. Wonderful to have you with me here today. We're going to be talking about the Nikon 24-200 F4-6.3 and using it with video. Let's cue the intro. Now, if you haven't seen the first review I did of this cheeky little lens, go ahead and check that out here. Second, very important thing is your support on the channel. Thank you so much to all the current subscribers for sharing your time with me. It gives me great pleasure to see that subscribers number climbing. It's fantastic. If you're new, this is what you have to do. Click on the little red square down here on the left hand side of the screen. That will subscribe you, and you'll be able to see more videos from me talking about Nikon gear. And of course, today's video is inspired by you out there. Thank you, Jerome. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Put a little comment picture up here for giving me some ideas about using this lens. I'm going to put it right here where you're seeing me from now, comparing it to the 35mm f1.8, which you're seeing me on now. I will start all the way back at 24mm and then take it to 35mm to give you a one-for-one comparison. Of course, I'm going to have to change some of the settings because it is quite dark here in the studio, and the f4 is not going to let nearly as much light in. So I'll try to adjust it first with ISO, and you can see the effect that might have on the video quality, as well as taking it outside, videoing Katie, my wonderful model. If you don't know her, you'll be seeing her shortly. She's great. And of course, some of the bees, some of the butterflies, and those sorts of things that I found out in the garden. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you really want to support the channel, go ahead and click the links, especially those affiliate links in the description down below. If you want 2 months free of Artlist music, go ahead and click that link down there. It'd be wonderful. And if you're interested in any of the small rig gear, like I have shown on the reviews using the Z50 and the vlogging gear, of which, if you're interested, you can see that here. Click the small rig link down below. It's at no cost to you and helps support the channel. Thank you so much. Right, let's change this lens for this lens right now. There you go. I'm back again. 35mm, just in case you don't think I actually have changed it. 35mm. And what I'm sure you're seeing me now is extremely dark. Of course, it's the f4. It's gone from f1.8 to f4. You'll also notice a massive difference in the background. It's now much more sharper and more clear. Doesn't have that nice smooth bokeh that these lovely f1.8 lenses give me. But let's quickly change that. There you have it. Back to a little bit brighter. Now push the ISO up to 1250. Same autofocus settings, eye and face detection on. And right now, I think it looks pretty good, considering the lens, which is a great bit of versatility when you consider the price of this lens and being able to film inside in a studio setting. Does it give you that same bokeh effect that 1.8 does? No, it doesn't. Does it work? Yes. What's the quality like? I think it's pretty good at 1250 ISO. You could probably push it a little bit higher if you really want to. And the 4K footage out of this beautiful Z6-1, which I've now gone back to after using the Z6-2 for a while. Review on the comparison you can see up here. Done 2 reviews actually. Here's the other one. But right now, let's zoom that in a bit. Let's go from 24 to 35. There you go, the 35mm. It's now gone from f4 to f4.8. I haven't changed the ISO, so it'd still be probably a little bit darker, of course, than it was at the 24mm. However, I'm still happy with it. I think it's a nice dramatic kind of look, something perhaps you would like. Of course, you can still up that ISO to match the 35, well, to match the brightness rather, that the f1.8 gives you. Now, it's really a personal feeling about what the background separation looks like. You could, if you had space in a studio setting, to take your background and push it further back, giving you a lot more depth of field if you have a higher f-stop. Unfortunately, for me, I don't have a lot of distance between myself and the background, which means I do not get that nice shallow depth of field, but I'm sure it would. I hope that was a good illustration of what it looks like in the studio. Let's look at what it can do with some of the outside images, the outside video rather, and also how Katie was and how the focus was following her. So you saw some of the footage there, and I'm just going to give you my final thoughts on using the lens in video mode. First of all, let's talk about it in the studio. I think it misses that shallow depth of field, which it just personally, I really, really like. Hence why if I was going, I would still go for either the 50mm f1.8 or the 35mm or the 24mm f1.8 prime lenses in terms of filming in a studio setting. And that's just because it suits me better. It suits my small space. I don't need the versatility of that zoom length. Going from 24 to 200, I really don't need that. If I was filming outside more often, if I was filming someone else, for example, and I needed to constantly be changing zoom lengths and therefore changing, in essence, the prime lenses that I would be using, that's no good to me. You don't have time to do that. So that's where I think the 24 to 200 will probably suit better for those types of needs. But the creativity in the bokeh that you get from the 1.8 primes is just unmatched. But I think that's unfair against the 24 to 200 because it worked perfectly fine in low light conditions right here in the studio, which you saw before. I'll put up somewhere a little box so you can be reminded of just how good it really was at look, I had to go to 1250 ISO, not ideal, but on the lovely Z6 it was a breeze. And when I went outside, I had absolutely no problem following Katie around. She was moving quite frequently around, and hey, look, I'm also still getting used to the autofocus system within these new cameras. I'm used to the old school vibes, and unfortunately, it's no fault of the camera or the lens. It's more the idiot behind the gear. But I still found it tracked her and followed her very well on animal focus mode. If I needed to, I could bring up the block to select the subject that I wanted to track and follow with the focus mode. I then, of course, you saw that, found a rat in the garden, pretty cool, but I used manual focus mode because there was so much vegetation and the fence between myself and this little creature. So I switched over to manual focus and put highlight peaking on and used the small focus ring. Perfect. It worked perfectly fine. Look, as soon as the rat ran away, of course it's going to lose focus. And but I knew that was going to happen. But at that time, I needed to get focus, and I didn't even need to switch it. It doesn't have a switch to manual focus on the lens. You simply turn the dial for the focus ring rather, on the lens, and the camera just automatically does it for you, and the focus peaking comes on if you've allowed it or got into your option menus to make that available to you when you're on manual focus. So I found it absolutely fine. If you need that kind of lens, you need to think about how you're going to be using it. So for me, what it comes down to in the end is really what you need the lens for. If you need that versatility, it's there, and it's a super, super lens. If you didn't see the previous video I did before on stills photography with this lens, check that out here. But in today's video test, I can't fault the lens. Yes, it doesn't have that shallow depth of field, but for the price you pay and the versatility of that zoom, you're not going to be disappointed. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.